It's a best-of-5 series. The Golden State Warriors have evened things with the Boston Celtics thanks to a fantastic performance, 107-88, the final score in Game 2 at Chase Center. Kevin Danna joins me, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors and sometimes the Golden State Warriors. We're going to recap the game, talk about why they won, the differences between Game 1 and 2, and what to expect for Game 3. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. You can follow Kevin Danna on Twitter at Kevo408. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. Kevin, I feel like DubNation needed that victory.
Yeah.
So much nerves going into the NBA Finals, let alone the Game 1 disaster that happened, especially in the fourth quarter. Give us your takeaways from Game 2, which even the series of one apiece.
Yeah, well, I mean, first, from a personal, very selfish perspective, I had been to 5 NBA Finals games before yesterday. 2016 Game 5, 2016 Game 7, 2019 Game 4, 2019 Game 6, and 2022 Game 1. Do you see a theme there, Cyrus?
I do. I see a losing streak being snapped. Congratulations.
Yes. And so, I was like, man, and it's not like the Warriors have lost a ton of finals games at Chase Center, and I just happen to be at like almost all of them. And so, brutal. Like, eventually I figured the streak had to stop. And, fortunately for Golden State, it did yesterday. I mean, I just thought they wanted it really bad. They just really wanted it in Game 2, right? Like, the first possession, Draymond Green, instead of letting Al Horford shoot a three, he gave him some wide open looks in Game 1. He tied him up, and he didn't guard Al a whole lot in that game. But that first possession, that first 11 seconds, let me know and let everyone know that, all right, the Warriors have come out to play today. And that was huge. And I'm just looking at some of the hustle stats on the interactive box score on NBA.com. In Game 1, the Warriors contested 58 of the 85 Celtics shots. So that was 27 wide open field goal attempts that the Celtics got in Game 1. In Game 2, the Warriors contested 63 of the Celtics' 80 shots. So that's 17 open field goal uncontested shots. So 10 fewer. Let's see. What am I trying to say? I am trying to say, Cyrus, that the Warriors contested more shots. Like 79% of the Celtics shots they contested, as opposed to 68% in Game 1. That is what I was trying to say before I had a total brain fart and trying to figure out, did they contest 10 more shots? No, they actually contested 5 more shots. But all right, we will leave the mathematics
That's okay,
drill.
Man.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm better at math than I just showed.
No,
I got a 670 on the SAT in math, ladies and gentlemen.
No, you're incredible with your data. And by the way, just to let people know, so tomorrow will be 2 weeks of company video for me. For some reason today it's hitting me really hard. I'm still coughing up a ton of gunk. So before we started recording, I told Kevin, I'm like, dude, I need you to help me carry this show today. So, and no matter what brain parts you have, you're still doing better than me. So thank you.
Hey, Cyrus, I am buckling under the pressure of having to carry a bigger load on Locked On Warriors. I think I need to be relegated to the bench, baby.
Oh, no, you're fine, man. You're fine.
But yeah, that was the big takeaway that I had. I mean, I think it was Steph who, after Game 1, said, we scored enough to win 108 points. Just got to get it done on defense, which obviously didn't happen in Game 1. I mean, they scored one less point in Game 2 and a one fewer point. And guess what? They won by 19. So, yeah, Defense was the difference, and attention to detail and getting into their shorts and getting physical and getting tough. I thought Draymond was incredible last night.
Oh, he was, man. And it drives me crazy how many people today are coming out saying the refs helped the Warriors. I've been meaning to do the research for a long time now, but from the personal foul standpoint, they actually called one more personal foul on the Celtics than they did the Warriors. And in terms of free throw attempts, the Warriors had a whopping 3 more. So I don't know if there was a huge advantage. It was a 19-point difference in this game. And you're right. Draymond had a phenomenal performance. Do need to let people know, by the way, I did hype up Rick Barry coming on the show today, but he was in the Chase Center crowd for game 2. And he's in the Bay Area right now. I believe he comes here every year for a golf tournament. That's what brought him to town this time. But wherever he's at, the internet connection sucks, and he could not join us despite our best efforts. So, but Kevin, I cannot thank you enough for carrying the load here, as you know, sitting in the seat next to me. Let's talk about the defense for a second, because that was a huge difference. The Warriors scored 108 points in game 1, 107 in game 2. So we're kind of seeing a pattern in terms of how many points the Warriors are going to put up here. But the Celtics point differential is night and day. They put 120 in game 1. In game 2, it's 88. One thing that stuck out to me in terms of schemes is that the Warriors zone, I don't think, is going to be effective in this series. We saw it a little bit in game 1. The Celtics, who are a great team, in no way do I feel comfortable. I don't think I'm going to feel comfortable until the series is over, in all honesty. Just that's how much respect I have for the Celtics team. But and one example of that is their efficiency on offense in picking apart that zone. A really great offense will capitalize on a zone defense because there's going to be open shooters. There's going to be offensive rebounds. And so in game 2, though, we saw a man D, which resulted in way more contested shots, like the stats you just mentioned. And then we saw Gary Payton II out there, who is my security blanket. I love that man. I think he is a complete difference maker. He is someone who the box sheet will not justify in terms of his impact. Tell me and tell the audience, please, what you saw from the Warriors defense in game 2 that made the huge difference.
Yeah, to your point about the zone, Cyrus, I'll start with this. Like Steve Kerr post-game said, they only played 1 possession of zone defense in game 2. And you saw the results. Now, I think they're going to play more than 1 possession of zone defense going forward, just because you don't want to feed any team a steady diet of the same defense. Even if you are mixing up the matchups here and there, you just don't want a team to get comfortable. So I do think that, hey, maybe they play 3 to 4 possessions of zone. You'll see Steve Kerr put up the 2 fists and Mike Brown on the bench to play zone. But defensively, it's not just the contested shots. I want to make sure I have the right box score up here. Let's see. Is this the one that Garry?
Make sure it's the one that says 88 for the Leprechauns.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the interactive box score game, but it's also the deflections, right? Like the Boston Celtics had 18 deflections. The Warriors had 30 deflections. And Draymond Green, 8 deflections himself. Stephen Curry, 7 deflections. There's a 1 possession. They've been talking. The talking heads on ESPN are talking about Stephen Curry's defense today because it was very good. I mean, 7 deflections, 6 contested shots. They show the replay of him D'ing up Payton Pritchard, who, all right, he's maybe not the best offensive generator, but he's a very solid backup who has had a nice start to his young NBA career. That was a smothering possession of defense. Like, the Celtics did try to target him at times, and they weren't having a ton of success because Stephen Curry is really turned himself into a solid defender. And,
yes, he has.
I'm just pulling up the offensive stats. I mean, as a team, the Golden State had a defensive rating of 89.8. Stephen Curry had a defensive rating of 88.1 in that game. I mean, which
incredible.
Is elite.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, those are the things that really kind of stood out to me, or at least kind of either seen it happen in person, like with the Draymond tie-up. I remember the Payton Pritchard possession where Steph locked him up, and then reading some of these stats and reading the articles that were written after the game that, this defense was on point. They were the number 2 defense in the NBA for a reason. And to start the season, they were sub 100 defensive rating for the first 10 plus games. And then kind of there was some slippage. But like through when they were 18-2, like their defense was playing at an historic level.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and 27-6. I mean, and I think it's clear the drop off coincided with the Draymond injury. The Draymond injury really started that 2.5-month malaise for this Warriors team. I want to play the sound real quick from Garry Payton II, who again, his impact was felt, and he made a huge difference out there. It's great to see him. Here's Garry Payton II echoing your sentiments about Stephen Curry being that two-way player.
Steph is a two-way player. You know, he does a lot on the other side, but he does a lot on the defensive side too. He's in the right spots at the right time. He had 3 steals tonight. You know, he's just in the right spot at the right time. And he talks to his teammates. He's vocal, and he leads by example on both sides of the court. And you know, I guess guys don't see it, but we see it on this team for sure.
So there was Garry Payton II. Giving kudos to Garry Payton. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline, and BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. Do you have any idea what the spread is for tonight, for Wednesday night's game? Do you want to guess?
My guess would be Boston -2.5.
Oh, you're close. It's actually Boston -3.5. When you were on last week, Gary St. Jean joined you, which was phenomenal. The feedback for that show was off the charts, man. People loved Saint.
Saint is the best.
He is, man. And the Saint said something that I thought was brilliant. It was right on the mark, which is that in a series like this, the bookies will typically give the home team 3 points. So if the line is 3.5, which is what it was for the Warriors in game 1, which is what it now is for the Celtics in game 3, that usually means it's a pick 'em, because it's really a half point is what the favorite is, and that's the definition of a pick 'em. It's one way or the other. So the line is 3.5 for the Celtics, which is a little surprising to me. And again, the bookies set these lines based largely on what they think people will bet and how people feel. The money line is -155 for the Celtics, plus 135 for the Warriors. That is the bet I would place. So the money line plus 135. And the over-under is 212.5. Anything look good to you there? I know you don't bet on these games. You're not supposed to.
I can't give any gambling advice. I will say that that Boston -155, from what I understand about sports and lines, seems interesting. Not from like you should bet this, but I was like, I didn't think it would be -155 is all I'm saying. And again, for any future employer, I don't bet on sports.
Of course. Yeah, I'm not saying that you do. It is a huge part of sports, and they're a longtime sponsor of this program and a lot of programs for that matter. But I'm with you though. That 155 seems high. It's indicative that the bookies feel like a lot of people think the Celtics will win game 3, and we'll cover that in just a moment. But again, BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. We here at Locked On have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards to take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. You can follow Kevin Danna on Twitter at Kevo408. You can follow me on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. Kevin, game 3 is at the Garden. The Warriors have to win a road game to win this series because they lost game 1. One interesting thing about the Leprechauns that sticks out to me particularly is the fact that they have not endured a losing streak this entire postseason. After every loss, they bounced back and won. So the Warriors are going to have to beat them 2 times in a row if they're going to win this series. What are you expecting in Game 3?
I mean, I think it's going to be a real battle. Like the Celtics will make their adjustments. They will find a way to be more efficient offensively. I especially do not see, Al Horford, Robert Williams III, and Marcus Smart each only having 2 points. Like those guys will not go combined 3 of 13 in Game 3. They played a combined, 67 minutes or so like that, and they only got 3 field goals. And Al Horford didn't even attempt a 3. Al Horford is attempting a 3 come hell or high water in Game 3. Now, I don't think he's going to go 6 of 8 from 3, but they're going to figure out something, the smarter minds of the Boston Celtics coaching staff than I have, to get a guy like Al Horford better looks, because he didn't take a shot in the entire first half. And his first shot of the second half was kind of a really rushed kind of scenario. I think the first one was kind of like this one that was flipped up that didn't really have much of a chance right around the rim. It was well contested, and he finished 1 of 4. So, those things stick out to me as things that Boston will get better at. Another thing from Game 1 to 2, just to backtrack a little bit, since we're talking about what Boston has done offensively, I said that, all right, Jason Tatum, he's going to have better scoring games than he did in Game 1, but he also created 50 points total with his points and assists. And so while Tatum in Game 2 scored 28 points, he only created at most 37 points total because he had 3 assists instead of 13 that he had in Game 1. So like they held Tatum to like a cumulative 13 fewer points, essentially, if you take the assists. So I think the Celtics are not going to lose by 19 in Game 3. Now I expect the Warriors to win one of these 2 in Boston. I don't know which one it is, but they're going to win one of them. Just the pedigree that this team has. I mean, the 26 straight playoff series with a road win, which is one of the most incredible stats out there, I think.
Agreed. It is wild. It's incredible.
So, those are the first couple of things that kind of stick into my mind. And, like the Warriors absolutely had to have that one. And, we could talk about, I know plenty of people who are tired of is this a must-win game? But the Warriors didn't want to go down 2-0. And so they needed to come out with the level of intensity that they did. Correct. Now that they have a little bit of leeway, not that they have a lot, they need to get one of these games, but if they lose Game 3 and win Game 4, they'll be all right. Right. They take, so it's not like they absolutely have to have Game 3, like they absolutely had to have Game 2. So I'm curious if they can keep that same level of focus and intensity, the desperation that they played with to start Game 1, to start Game 2, if that can carry over to Game 3 in Boston. Because I imagine it'll carry over to Game 4 if they lose Game 3. But coming off a win, can they play with that same desperation? That's something that I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that as well. I have 2 things for you here. Yeah. One is, I'm curious to know if you agree or not. I feel like in Game 3, all the pressure is on the Celtics because the Warriors, I think, can afford to lose Game 3. I don't want them to. Obviously, this is a very dangerous Celtics team. I prefer the Warriors put them away as soon as possible, finish this thing, come home, hoist that Larry O'Brien, and let's all be happy. But if they lose Game 3, it's certainly not the end of the world. But if the Celtics lose Game 3, they're in a whole heap of trouble. It'll be their first losing streak of the postseason. All the momentum will be behind the Warriors at that point. So I'm curious to know if you agree with that sentiment. And also, what do you think the Warriors did so effectively on Al Horford to make him go from a 6 for 8 shooting night from beyond the arc in Game 1 to not putting up a single 3-point attempt in Game 2?
Yeah. So first off, I do agree with your assessment. Like, I think the home team, needs to take care of the home games, right? Like, Boston did its job by getting 1 of 2 on the road. Like, winning game 1 put the Warriors behind the 8 ball in a serious way. Now they've removed themselves from that hole a little bit. And now if they can get 1 of these 2, and so if the Celtics need to take care of home court advantage, like I think everyone agrees they need to, now that they have that home court advantage, then they can't lose a game at home. So yes, it is more crucial for Boston to win game 3, because the Warriors do have another crack at a road win in game 4 if they drop game 3. Then the Celtics win that game 3, then then the Warriors are going to have to go back in that, all right, got to lace them up kind of mode. So with respect to Al Horford, the biggest thing after Draymond got the tie-up was that they put Klay on him. And they moved Draymond Green to Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown was he was not made to feel like he was having a nice dinner at Miller and Lux next to Chase Center, on the floor. I mean, just say things got a little testy between Draymond and Jaylen Brown. So that worked. So and then Klay Thompson, you can talk about that he's not who he was defensively coming back from 2.5 years. But he's stout, he's strong, and even the first game, one of the things I took away from his return January 9th, 2022, aka Klay Day against the Cleveland Cavaliers, kind of like a worthy opponent of the moment, right? Because they had 4 straight finals appearances against Cleveland, was how well he stood up to bigger players when they tried to back him down. And Al Horford, he's a fantastic player, but he's not going to be like a guy who moves off the ball like Stephen Curry, right?
Right.
So Klay Thompson doesn't necessarily need to have the same lateral quickness guarding Al Horford that he needed to against the Jaylen Brown in game 1. And since Klay is a strong dude, and he basically just needed to stay attached to him, whereas Draymond Green, he wants he plays kind of a rover mode when he's not guarding like the numero uno option. And so he was kind of in rover mode against Boston in game 1, where he was helping off Al Horford because, look, they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and you want to stop dribble penetration because those 2 guys are elite scorers and just kind of elite athletes, and are going to be, the face of, they've been the face of the Celtics for 5 years. And Jaylen Brown's been there for 6 years. Tatum's been there for 5, and they're going to be there for a decade plus more. I hope, at least, and I'm sure Boston Celtics fans hope. In January we were talking, let's break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And no, I think everything's okay with the Boston Celtics. Like, they had gone to that. You're right. They had gone to like 3 conference finals in the previous 5 seasons. They had like one season where they go 36-36 in a pandemic year, and it's like time to blow up, time to start the bus on that. I just whatever. Anyways, but I mean, that's kind of revisionist history on my part too, because they didn't look good for a while. But back to kind of the Draymond thing with Al Horford, like, you saw him daring Al Horford to shoot, and Al Horford has been great in the postseason from 3, 46%, and he's still 46% after last night because he didn't take a shot from beyond the arc. And so, like, that allowed Draymond to do what he can do so well, playing on-ball defense. Now, obviously, he could do that against Al Horford, but it wouldn't serve the Warriors as well, right? Like, because Al Horford's not going to be like a primary ball handler like that. So putting him on one of the guys who's going to pound the rock a little bit, I thought really worked well for Golden State, and allowed Klay Thompson, who can guard an Al Horford pretty well one-on-one. I thought he did a nice job defensively last night.
Wholeheartedly agree. I saw the exact same thing. I thought it was a fantastic adjustment because Klay, and it made Klay an effective defender, because whatever his struggles are with faster players, Al Horford is not going to blow by you. That's a huge reason why I was also advocating for Nemanja Bjelica to play, because Bjelica can also guard a player like Al Horford, who's not the slasher type. He doesn't have the greatest post game either. He's a solid big. I mean, Al Horford clearly is effective. I mean, he's almost the single biggest reason why the Celtics won game 1. But is kudos to the Warriors and Steve Kerr and Mike Brown and company for putting Klay on them and playing tighter defense on them, and the results showed there. I want to play the soundbite from another player who really stood out in game 2, and the Warriors needed his offense because Klay's offense was iffy, and I want to talk about that in just a moment. But this is Jordan Poole talking about what he did differently in game 2 versus game 1.
Jordan, what was the difference between games 1 and games 2? And then what did Steph say to you after you hit the half-court shot?
Looking for my shot more. I think the first game I was trying to get my teammates involved, trying to get them easy looks because they were crowding me and they had a lot of attention on me in the non-Steph minutes. But just being aggressive, and we talked about it in shoot around a couple of days ago. Somebody was going to hit a half-court shot in this series, whether it was me or Steph. I just happened to hit it.
And there's Jordan Poole again, who finished with 17 points. Most of those points coming from three-pointers. He was 5 for 9 from beyond the arc. The youngest player in NBA Finals history to hit 5 3-pointers in a Finals game. Klay, I talked to Rick Barry right after the game because I wanted his opinions, especially about Klay Thompson and his shooting struggles. Rick told me, and I said this on last night's post-game live reactionary show that I do after every Finals game, that according to Rick, he thinks Klay is not setting his feet when he's shooting, that he's rushing a lot of his shots. He might be forcing some of his shots. But then he also said, look, Klay's one of the greatest shooters in the history of this game, and he could be doing the exact same thing he did in games 1 and 2, and in game 3 could end up making 7 out of 8 or some crazy number like that. I mean, that's just how good he is. Your thoughts on Jordan Poole and also on Klay's shooting struggles?
Yeah, so I do want to. So I don't want to push back on anything Rick Barry said because
please.
I don't have a problem with what Rick Barry said because I think it's pretty accurate, and I'm not watching his feet when he's shooting. Like, I don't have that level of attunement that Rick Barry does. My issue with how Klay has been presented in the media in general in this series is that he's had a bad first 2 games. He had a bad game 2 offensively.
Mm-hmm.
I thought game 1, all right, he's 6 of 14 and 3 of 7 from downtown. Like, what more do you want from 3 of 7 and from down? Like, that's 43% from 3. That's an elite number. Like, if he makes one more 2-point shot.
Kevin, just to cut you off real quick.
Yeah.
I think the criticism for game 1 for Klay was that he didn't put up enough shots. I think his shot attempt number was lower than what people wanted from him. I don't think he attacked the rim, attacked the basket enough. I think that's what the criticism was.
All right, all right. So they don't want him to attack the basket, or they want him to attack the basket more. But Klay's better as a spot up shooter. Like, it's like he's damned if he do, damned if he doesn't.
Yep.
If that's the case. Yeah, he didn't shoot well in game 2. 4 of 19, 1 of 8 from 3. He did hit a big 3, though. It forced an Ime Udoka timeout, kind of gave the Warriors that initial separation in the third quarter. I mean, I'm not worried about Klay Thompson being able to come back and have a big game. I mean, it just feels like every time Klay has a bad shooting game, there is some subsection of whether it's the Twitter Republic or the media republic that panics a little bit. And I mean, Klay would go through monster shooting slumps pre-torn ACL and Achilles. Like, I mean, before he had 14 threes against the Chicago Bulls, like, he got off to one of the worst shooting starts of the season in 18-19. Like, he was like low 20s from 3 or something.
I remember that, yeah.
For a decent part of that season. Like, he's gonna be fine when it comes to, like, all right, maybe he's not 100%, pre-June 13th, 2019, but still a damn good player. And just because he goes 4 of 19 one game, it doesn't mean he's going to go 4 of 19 the next game. It just feels like there's a little more like, Klay's lost it after every time he has a bad shooting game, and I just don't agree with that because
I hear you.
You know,
I'm 100%
in Game 5, 100%. The last 2 closeout games, he's had like 8 threes in each of them and 30-plus points. Or, you know, what I mean, he's definitely scored 30 in each, and I think he had 8 threes.
Yeah, 32 and 30. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, like last I checked, he didn't have a major injury between Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals this year and Game 2 of the NBA Finals. So,
yeah.
All right. That's my thought on Klay Thompson. Oh, yeah, you asked me about Jordan Poole, too.
Yeah, just some thoughts on that. Because I feel like the moment was just a little too big for him in Game 1. I was worried. I'm so glad to see him come back in Game 2 and play his style of ball. Yeah, and your thoughts about Jordan Poole?
Yeah, you know, Jordan, I thought, like, kind of though, and I read this in Slater's article, is that, like, you know, he took advantage of the mid-range, and his 1 2-point make in Game 2 was a mid-range pull-up because the drive game wasn't working for him in the first half, right? He had gotten constantly rejected at the rim or have his shot altered when he was trying to drive to the hoop. That's not something Jordan Poole is used to because he's used to blowing past his defender and getting a layup. Now maybe he mixes in a shot fake there. And I think a shot fake, like a little pump fake when he gets to the hoop could really get him to the line a decent bit because he hasn't necessarily shown it in this series. And I think he certainly has that in his bag. But I thought it was, I mean, the last 90 seconds or last 79 seconds, whenever he came in at the end of the third quarter, I mean, it started with that beautiful feed to Kevon Looney inside and then the back-to-back threes, including the half-court shot. Like, that's how you break out of a 6-quarter slump to start the NBA Finals, and we'll see if it carries over. I like that they kept him on the floor, for large stretches of that fourth quarter, even though the game was out of reach after that 6-0 run. I mean, after I think it was the Bjelica dunk that made it 93-64. So the 6-0 run, I was like, all right, game blouses. Like, the Warriors have evened up this series. But I'm glad that Poole stayed out there. I'm glad that Klay stayed out there, too, to try to, find those guys a little more of a rhythm offensively, even if it comes in quote-unquote garbage time. Anytime you see the ball go through the hoop in live action, I think is a bonus.
You're absolutely right, man. No, that's a great call there. I agree with all of that. And just to wrap things up here, the Warriors, they had a 9-man rotation in Game 2 that I think is the recipe for success. Like that 9-man rotation, and look, if Iguodala comes back, I'm not opposed to it. I think he, the stats showed he actually played tremendous defense on Jason Tatum.
Well,
a huge reason why. What? Sorry.
Yeah, he played well in Game 1, I thought.
He did, yeah. At least, certainly defensively, especially, where Jason Tatum had 12 points, and a large reason was Andre Iguodala, who was guarding him almost exclusively. And his offensive numbers were great too. But at the same time, what I didn't like in Game 1 was having Iguodala and Draymond Green on the floor together. I don't know if that's something that's sustainable in a 7-game series against the Celtics, just because it does stagnate the offense a little bit. But look, if Iguodala comes back and he's basically Draymond Green's sub-in, I love it. I really think like Gary Payton II was huge coming back. I thought Otto Porter Jr. has had a phenomenal series so far. It's only been 2 games, but his impact is immeasurable because the stats do not reflect either of those players' impact and importance for the Warriors. I mean, Otto Porter Jr. Only had 1 field goal attempt. It was a 3-pointer, finished with 3 points, but his plus minus was 24 in the positive. He tied with Steph and Kevon Looney for leading the game in that department. And then Gary Payton II had 7 points. But again, that 1-3 was huge. And this is defense and being at the right place at the right time. I mean, his timing is impeccable. And I especially love Nemanja Bjelica getting minutes. And I really think, again, the playoffs is all about matchups. It's all about, again, matching up with your opponent and figuring out what the right guys are in the right situations. And this is a series that I think Bjelica can thrive in because the Celtics don't really have anyone that makes him a liability on the defensive side. You can hide him on Robert Williams III. He can guard Al Horford. If Grant Williams is out there, he can guard Grant Williams. And he spaces the floor offensively because you cannot just leave him alone beyond the arc. He will burn you with 3-pointers. So I'm feeling really good with Gary Payton II back. I'm feeling really good with Nemanja Bjelica getting minutes. Like I said, if Iguodala feels good enough to play, I love him coming off the bench as relief for Draymond Green. Your thoughts on everything I just said there? Because ultimately, I really do feel like the Warriors in Game 2 figured out the rotation, the puzzle pieces. They found the pieces to put together to beat this Celtics team. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so let's go through these bench guys for a second. You're right. That three that Otto Porter hit, like, all right, it was 68-56, and then the Celtics, like, their one little stretch of get back in the second half, they hit, I think it was back-to-back threes to make it 68-62. Then Otto Porter Jr. hits a left corner three to make it 71-6, and, like, they absolutely needed that shot in that moment to kind of stem the tide. And then that brought about, I mean, it was 68-62. They ended up going on a 25-2 run because it went to 93-64, and it started with that Otto Porter three. So, like, just monster three there from Otto Porter Jr. And yeah, like you meant, the plus 24 that he had was huge. I mean, obviously GP2. I will say, so I was at Chase. His standing ovation when he got into the game for the first time. So one of the loudest Chase Center moments I've heard, and I haven't been there for every game. I mean, I actually didn't go to a lot of home games this year because of the Santa Cruz Warriors. But I mean, it was like I took off my headset. I was listening to Tim Roy's call while I was there. I took off my headset so I could get the full experience. Man, like it was really loud. And that's how much DubNation loves Young Glove, and he delivered, man. I mean, it was great to see him hit that left corner three. I guess the elbow is all right, or he's fighting through it enough to the point where it's not bothering him on that shot. But yeah, just kind of the defensive pest in him that he brings. You know, he didn't have his patented steal and slam, but like that's coming at some point in this series. Just his on-ball pressure, I thought, was great. Just made the Celtics feel uncomfortable when he was out there. I'm looking at the hustle stats for GP2 in this, let me pull up the hustle stats real quick because I'm curious to see what they were for GP2 in this game. A couple of deflections. He set a nice screen. He had a screen assist for a big Steph three. I think it was the one that made it 76-62. He had 4 contested shots, contested a couple of twos, a couple of threes, recovered a loose ball. Like, just kind of the little things that he was able to do, I thought were huge. And then Nemanja Bjelica, I mean, he was very solid last night. 6 points, 5 rebounds in 10.5 minutes. And you mentioned the guys that he's able to defend. Well, he also took a turn on Jason Tatum, basically shut the faucet off.
Yes, he did.
Like, for that one, like, now I wouldn't want Nemanja Bjelica guarding Jason Tatum for 30 minutes, but like in situations where he switched on to him, like, he held his own and then some.
Yes, he did. He guarded Luka too a little bit. He guarded Luka a little bit in that Mavericks series too, and held his own there as well.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So I mean, like, Nemanja Bjelica at times is like, I remember after game 1, everyone was calling him Nikola Jokic. It was like, all right, let's slow our roll a little bit after the 15-11 rebound game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, that's not the first thought I had when I watched him play. I loved him on the Sacramento Kings, though. Like, a guy who could just fire deep threes and, skill big, pass the rock a little bit. I mean, all right, Nikola Jokic can also do, I guess, like, oh, he's Serbian. They can both pass the ball. They can both shoot the ball. Oh, hey, Bjelica's Nikola Jokic. And then it went from that to like, oh, he's unplayable. He can't play defense. He's a liability. And he's balanced out nicely in the playoffs. I thought he's given, throughout when he's been in the lineup, he's done a nice job for Golden State. Those, and then we've talked about Poole, but with respect to those 3 guys, I've been impressed with those 3. I'll be interested to see if Moody gets more time or Kuminga at certain stretches, because those would be potentially next 2 guys up. And if Andre's ready to go, you got to play Andre. Like, this is, and it's not just like, all right, this is his last hurrah, you got to throw him in. Like, he can still be effective when he's out there. And like, I go back to 2019 Game 6. I think in the NBA Finals. I think he had like 22 points in that game. Like he was like he turned back the clock offensively. So he's 38 now, but I could easily see Andre for like one last ride. Like
I can't too.
Partying like it's 2006.
Yeah, I absolutely can't too. And part of me wonders in game one if Kerr, I mean, look, Kerr just didn't feel comfortable playing Garry Payton II. I think he was just hoping Iguodala
he wasn't cleared to like he was only cleared for certain situations. So that's
right.
Why.
That's confusing. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what does that mean? Like, how can you clear him as a physician or as a MD for certain situations in basketball? That seemed really bizarre to me. So
I'm not Rick Celebrini. I'm not Nirav Pandya. But like what I would surmise from that is that he could have come in, say there's like 12 seconds left, ball's out of bounds off Golden State. So Boston's getting it with the shot clock off. So Golden State's not going to play offense. You take Steph Curry out or you take Jordan Poole out and you put GP2 in. Kind of like how we've seen them use Juan Toscano-Anderson in the quarter situations from time to time in the playoffs. And that was how GP2 got on this roster, basically. Like the end of last season, he was used in those spots almost exclusively.
Correct.
And then to start this season as well. I remember in the Lakers game, first couple of games to see, it wasn't until that Charlotte game in early November where he became a part of the rotation going forward. And so that's a role that Garry excels in. And if he's only going to play defense, you're not going to worry about him putting up a shot and kind of extending that left elbow. So that's how I understand it. I don't know if that's what it means, but that would be my hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean, because it was just weird because his dad was on. He did this interview with Rich Eisen. It was the first interview I've seen from Garry Payton in weeks because I've been wanting to hear from him since the Dylan Brooks altercation where he injured his son. And he forgave Dylan Brooks. He called it a basketball play. And then, but he also said that he was perplexed because his son was cleared and was ready to go. And he was baffled that Kerr didn't put him in there. But look, better late than never, man. I mean, I'm glad he's out there now. I don't know what happened in 2 days that suddenly made Kerr and company feel better about him. I've always felt there's been a weird hesitancy to play him because again, when he was playing for the team last year, I've been advocating for him since then. Like since late last regular season, I saw that kid and was like, my God, this is a player that can play stout defense, is smart offensively. He's not obviously like, a special offensive player, but he's smart. He's in the right place at the right time. He's a lob threat. He surprisingly has a post-up game, freakishly athletic in terms of his hops, especially more so than his dad. His dad attributes his mother as being the reason for being gifted athletically more so than himself.
Wasn't she like a track star?
Correct, exactly. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. So, and I want to end this show on a really lighthearted note because, again, in my opinion, Garry Payton II, nothing but great things happen when he plays. Nemanja Bjelica in this postseason, especially, nothing but great things happen when he plays. And then little Draymond Jr. For some reason, like just him being around the team just brings such positive energy. It's very uplifting. And Chris Alvarez of ABC7 here in the San Francisco Bay Area had a chance to interview Draymond and a little Dre. This is Draymond Green and Draymond Green Jr.
Get a little analysis from DJ. How'd Dad play?
Good.
You got a career in your hands, just like your pops.
No.
Is DJ trip to Boston?
You going? Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's pretty cool. We're gonna see you running around the floor in the parquet.
Yep.
All right. That'll be cool. We'll look forward to seeing you guys in Boston in a couple days. Safe trip. And DJ, we're looking for you on the floor.
Thank you. Say peace.
Peace, guys.
That was awesome. I don't know. Maybe you got to be a Warriors fan to truly appreciate that. But I love that kid, man. Congratulations, Draymond Green, on having a beautiful family there. Any last thoughts, Kevin, before we bid adieu? Game 3 is Wednesday. What's your prediction, if any? And any last thoughts before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, I predict that Golden State will win one of these two games. I think it's going to come back 2-2. Just to finish up on the Garry Payton interview stuff. I don't know his interview schedule, but if that was his first interview since Dylan Brooks, like the Dylan Brooks thing, I think that's a good decision, right? Like you don't want, like I'm sure GP2 doesn't want his dad like fighting his battles for him in the media, right? Like I think that's a good decision if that's what happened. I mean, I certainly hadn't heard any Gary Payton comments on the Dylan Brooks thing.
I can't tell you that it's like 100% certain. It's just, but I was fishing for attributions left and right, and I didn't see Gary talking to anyone. I have Gary Payton's email. I emailed him. I didn't hear back. So that was the first time I'd seen or heard him speak since the Dylan Brooks incident, and it was interesting for sure. Yeah.
But no, I can't wait till Wednesday night gets here, 6 p.m. Pacific. Let's roll the ball on the court. Let's play some shooty hoop. Let's get going. This is going to be very fun. I do think this is a 7-game series. June 19th should be a very intense day. And,
I think I'm hoping it doesn't even get that far. There's still a part of me, like when the series started, I think I made the prediction with you and maybe Gary St. Jean. I can't remember if that was the day, but I said if the team is fully healthy, and that included Gary Payton II playing all 7 games, or every game that he's available, that included Andre Iguodala, I thought the Warriors could finish this in 5, and I still do believe that firmly. But Gary Payton II wasn't there in game 1; he's there now. I really do believe there's a possibility if the Warriors play at their best level, they can win both these games in the Garden and come back and finish it at home. Or at a minimum, if they get a split, they can still try to finish it at the Garden in game 6. I do think that possibility is there. I don't want to rule it out. Like, I just have that much faith in this team. I think they're that good. But yeah, your thoughts, please.
Yeah. I mean, 91 Bulls, Lakers, 2012 Heat, Thunder, 2011 Eastern Conference Finals, Heat, Bulls. Trying to think of other series. But first, there's another NBA Finals series that 01 Sixers, Lakers, where one team won the first game and lost the next 4.
There you go.
But I think that the Warriors and Celtics are much closer than like Sixers, Lakers, right? Like it took everything for the Sixers to win that first game, and then they just got. And I think we all knew that they were just going to get just trounced the rest of that series. That was I'm pretty sure that's the only game, as Bacon says hello.
Hey Bacon.
I'm pretty sure that's the only loss that the Lakers had that postseason. Was game 1 of the final.
That is correct.
Yeah,
yes.
So,
just like how the Cavaliers game 4 prevented the Warriors from a perfect postseason, that was
86
one blemish. In 2001, you're absolutely right. And honestly, like I don't mean any disrespect to the Celtics saying this. Robert Williams III is clearly not 100%.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like huge. He is a very important player for him. And ultimately, I do think the Celtics, as good as they are still missing a player. I don't know where that player slides in. I don't know if it's like, if it's a player that fits below Jaylen Brown in terms of stature and prominence, or maybe it's someone in between Brown and Tatum. I think
what kind of player are they missing in your opinion?
It could offensively. I think they have shortcomings offensively. I just don't think they could put up enough points. I think the 88 points we saw in game 2, because we're seeing a pattern here with the Warriors. They're going to be putting up that 107, 108. I think they could even get to like 110 plus. I think the 120 the Celtics put up in game 1 was an anomaly. Like, I don't think that's a clip that they're going to be meeting on a regular basis. Like 90, 95 is more realistic. I just don't think they have the offense. I think they need Derek White to shoot 5 for 8 from 3. They need Al Horford to shoot 6 for 8 from 3. And I just don't think you can count on that on a consistent basis. And that's why I think the Warriors are the better team. Now, if they had one more like shooter, like a Gordon Hayward, I think maybe someone like him is sorely missing. Like another offensive threat who also has size. And that's just off the top of my head. I'm just spitballing right now, but that's just my observation. Who knows if I'm right or not, but yeah, that's just my observation skills. So, all right, Kevin, it's always a pleasure, man. I think it's safe to say, regardless, we're going to be doing another show next Monday. I highly doubt the series is over before then. I don't think it's even possible.
But it's not possible.
It's not possible.
Game 5 is June 13th, and there has to be game 5.
Yeah, so it's not even possible. So we'll be doing at least one more of these. Realistically, regardless of what happens, we'll be doing 2 more of these on Mondays. I don't think the off season starts for the Locked On schedule until July. So regardless, Mondays with Kevin will proceed at least through June. And then before we go through some sort of off-season schedule, and then we'll reconvene next season. But regardless, yeah. So through June, Kevin Danna joins me. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevo408. And thanks for putting up with me. I have no energy today. I don't know what's going on. This company video is just a nasty thing, man. It is hitting me all over the place. Again, tomorrow will be 2 weeks, and I'm still coughing up pieces of my lung. Without grossing people out, I don't know how else to tell you. I don't feel great. But Kevin, thanks for helping me carry the show today, man. And thanks for just a great job you're doing, brother. You're just pro's pro, dude, and you're a great dude on top of that.
Mondays with Kevin, man. It's like Tuesdays with Maury, but with less life insight.
Yeah, and hopefully with less diseases and stuff. Yes, like a healthier version of that. Yes, Mondays with Kevin. Yeah, so absolutely. And that is a great book, by the way. My mom made me read that some years ago. Yeah, and again, you can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. You can follow this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Make sure to go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft, player rankings, and, of course, the big boards. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. By the way, Kevin, before we go, I participated in the Locked On mock draft, and my pick for the Golden State Warriors in that mock draft, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I relied largely on Kristen Peak, who I think is brilliant when it comes to observing college talent, high school talent, G League talent. So I went with where's the name? Walker Kessler from Auburn University. He's their center. Your thoughts?
Big time rim protector. Like this, I'm looking at him right now. I mean, I remember like the guy averaged like 4 blocks a game this year for the 4.6, like just crazy. Yeah, this is a guy that transferred from North Carolina to Auburn and just had a monster year. A big reason why they were a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. Yeah, he was tied for second at the combine standing reach. He had a 9.5 standing reach. There was one guy who had like a 9.9 standing reach. I think it was Mark Williams. Don't quote me on that. But he was and he was also the tallest guy without shoes at the combine. So without shoes, 7 foot and a quarter inch. And with shoes, I think he's like 7'1", 245. And he's going to turn 21 next month. I like this. I like kind of his profile a lot. I remember watching him. And, you know, if you can score 11 points per game for a team in college, that usually is a pretty good sign that you have some sort of offensive skill. He's not a 3-point shooter. You know, he shot 20% from 3 this year. But, no, I mean, the 4.6 blocks per game, that is tough to do. And, I mean, especially considering his minutes. He played 26 minutes a game this year, and he averaged 4.6 blocks per game. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he could come in and play right away, and this is based on the Locked On mock draft. There were other players I wanted, but they were picked ahead of him. So Walker Kessler was my pick, and want to add one last thing here before we go. The Warriors in Game 2, from the end of the first half, this is late second quarter until the beginning of the fourth quarter, they went on a 43-14 run. Ooh. It's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
Money.
I'll leave people with that. Man. I'll see you next week, Kevin. Thanks, brother. Always a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Later.